Welcome to B&B Hockey Talk, everybody. I'm Aaron Bloxel with my co-host, Mr. Matt Balzer. Trade deadline day today, and we were not disappointed. There were several trades that happened, and a lot more than I thought would happen. But who are your winners? Who are your losers?
Well, I think the big winner here have to be the Nashville Predators and the Vegas Golden Knights.
Those are my winners all the way. They're all in.
Yeah, those are my winners in the Western Conference, and in the Eastern Conference, you gotta go to the Columbus Blue Jackets and Jarmo Kekalainen. He's going all in with all the moves that he's made.
They ever
the deadline.
The Ottawa Blue Jackets are in contention.
Yeah, so basically every single free agent ended up with the Columbus Blue Jackets. You had Matt Duchene go there in a trade earlier in the week for a couple prospects and a couple first-round picks. The Columbus also got Ryan Dzingel from Ottawa for a couple of second-round picks. And then today they picked up Keith Kincaid from the New Jersey Devils and Adam McQuaid from the New York Rangers. And I believe if they made one more.
What does that do for Columbus with three solid goalies now? Because you got Korpisalo there, you got Kincaid there now, and of course Bobrovsky's the big goalie there.
Yeah. Since that trade happened like super early in the morning, I was just like, are Columbus in a trade Bobrovsky or is this just a goaltending shore up? Because I thought like I know Korpisalo's numbers aren't the greatest this season, but he's been playing really well of late. So I was actually surprised that they went after Kincaid. So it's a bit of a head scratcher for me. But if something does happen to Bobrovsky, you got somebody with experience like Kincaid. He played a few games there with New Jersey in the playoffs, and he was a big part of their big run to make in the playoffs last year, along with Taylor Hall and all those guys. So I like that pickup there. And then, of course,
the Nashville Predators. Let's touch on them for a sec. They near the end of the day, just before the deadline, they grabbed Wayne Simmons from Philadelphia, and then earlier in the day, they grabbed Michael Granlund for Kevin Fiala straight up to the Minnesota Wild. And is that like is it like somebody's little brother on Minnesota that got threatened to beat up for their lunch money? Is that, that trade made no sense to me at all from Minnesota's point of view. Other than, Fiala is younger. He maybe does have some upside, but man, they just traded away a 70-point player for a guy that's yet to prove himself in the NHL almost.
Yeah, because I'm just like, as soon as I saw Granlund go for Fiala this straight up, I was just like, wow, like Nashville just got a really good steal. Like Granlund will really help improve their power play. Nashville actually has, surprisingly, I've seen they have the worst ranked power play in the NHL right now with all their guys and their defensemen that they have. That's really intriguing. So Granlund comes in and he already has more power play points than any of the Nashville guys on the team right now. And Wayne Simmons, we know he's going to bring that net front presence and just the physical way that he plays. And get going for Kevin Fiala. Like last year, he had a pretty good year. I think he had over 20 goals and close.
He had a great start to the playoffs last year too, until he broke his leg.
Mm-hmm. And then, but this year he's had a bit of a disappointing year. Only 10 goals, 32 points in 64 games, which isn't too bad. But I think the big thing here is that Minnesota's GM Fenton. He had been with the Nashville organization for many, many years before taking the Minnesota job this past offseason. So he's pretty high on Fiala, and he also picked up Anthony Bitetto off waivers earlier this year and Pontus Ahlberg in an earlier trade. Those were all guys that were in the Nashville organization that he helped draft. So I can see why he's high on Fiala. And the thing is with him, he basically teases you with, because like he'll show like all this skills sort of thing right now, and then you'll go on a nice run and then you'll disappear for a little bit. So it's up to Fiala to get that consistency into his play.
Nashville also picked up Brian Boyle earlier this month. They've definitely got some size and some depth to obviously play the Winnipeg Jets in the playoffs. Winnipeg responds with a bunch of trades today as well. What did you think of their trades, and why don't you go through those in depth?
Okay, yeah. So they picked up Kevin Hayes from the New York Rangers for Brendan Lemieux, their first round pick and a conditional fourth round pick in 2022. That pick only goes if the Jets win the cup. But Kevin Hayes, huge 6'5" centerman. Basically, he'll be like the Paul Stastny for them last year, going into that second line spot. And then they made a bunch of depth moves as well. They picked up Nathan Beaulieu from the Buffalo Sabres for a sixth round pick. They brought back Matt Hendricks from the Minnesota Wild for a seventh round pick. That'll be his second stint with the Winnipeg Jets. They traded Nick Batan to the Toronto Maple Leafs for Par Lindholm. And lastly, they traded a seventh round pick to the Florida Panthers for Bogdan Kizlevich. So Beaulieu,
Kizlevich, I remember this guy. He had a cage on when the Canucks played them earlier this year.
Yeah. Apparently, like he played in the KHL last year, and when he was coming over to the NHL, the Jets were actually really interested in signing him. I saw, so that's why they brought him. And just their depth on the left hand side, like you got Josh Morrissey, and then after that, you got like some question marks in the play of like Ben Sherratt and Dmitry Kulikov. So bringing in guys like Beaulieu and Kizlevich, that gives them another option on the left hand side. And with some of the injuries they've been dealing with, like Dustin Byfuglien's been in and out of the lineup of late, and apparently Josh Morrissey just suffered an injury last night, so that gives them a bit more depth. The Nick Batan trade I actually like for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Yeah. He's a smaller type of player, but he's been around like a point a game in the American Hockey League. It's just that with all those high skilled forwards in front of him in Winnipeg, he just hasn't really been able to find a good fit in Winnipeg.
So let me get this straight. In Winnipeg, they're not probably going to, but they could put out a line of Byfuglien and Tyler Myers with Blake Wheeler, Kevin Hayes, and pick your next big guy, Adam Laurie or Mark Scheifele. All guys that are like 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". And Myers is 6'7", I believe. Mm-hmm. They have some serious size, and now I think Nashville's happy they picked up a guy like Brian Boyle. Just because the amount of size Winnipeg has. They're built to go through Nashville, and then they stumbled against Vegas last year. I'm going to be curious to see what happens, because you mentioned to me before we came on air how close St. Louis is coming to those two teams, because they've both been struggling lately.
Mm-hmm, yeah, so I'm hoping. Well, I guess both teams will be hoping that these trades help give them a bit of a boost to start to get going, because St. Louis is only 5 points behind Nashville with 2 games in hand. And they're only, I believe, 6 or 7 points back of Winnipeg, but they played the same amount of games as Winnipeg. But with the way the Blues just keep winning, it's just like if the rest of the teams keep going around like the 500 mark, the Blues have a chance, or an outside chance, to maybe get first place in the division, which nobody would have been talking about a couple of months ago.
Well, now that St. Louis is getting the goaltending, they didn't make a whole lot of moves today. They picked up an ex-Canuck for obvious depth purposes. Michael Del Zotto for a 6th rounder. But outside of that, let's go over to the Pacific Division for a sec. Calgary really stood pat today. But both San Jose made a move last night, and Las Vegas definitely made, to me, the best trade of the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the Vegas Golden Knights got Mark Stone from the Ottawa Senators for Oscar Lindberg, Eric Brandstrom, and a 2020 second-round pick. Mark Stone, what can you say? Like, the guy is.
And they signed him. They signed him right away, so he's not a UFA anymore.
Yeah. So the deal can't officially be announced until March 1st, I saw, but it'll be an 8-year extension with around a $9.5 million cap hit. He already, just joining the Golden Knights, he already leads the team in points by a fair margin. He has 62 points in 59 games. Alex Tuch had been leading the team in points with around like 43 or something like that. So he'll step in and he'll be in their top 6. It'll be interesting to see if they put him around on Carlson's line or Stastny's line to see where exactly he fits. But man, he's a great two-way player. He can put the puck in the net. Like I saw like Keith Tkachuk in last night's game, he really wanted Ottawa to find a way to re-sign him and keep him, just because he had made such a huge impact on Brady Tkachuk this season. But it wasn't to be. But yeah, it's a huge pickup for Vegas, who's another team that's been struggling of late. So this will give them a huge boost. And then the Sharks gained Gustav Nyquist from the Detroit Red Wings last night for a second-round pick and a third-round pick. Nyquist,
adding depth like crazy there.
I know, yeah. It's like I still can't believe like San Jose is able to add all these guys, but their top 9 is just insane right now.
Look at their big 3 defensemen. I mean, Burns, Carlson, and Vlasic back there.
Yeah, you got that, and their top 9 now is like Timo Meier, Logan Couture, Joe Pavelski, and then you got Hurdle, Kane, Donskoy, and then you got Nyquist, Thornton, all there. So and LeBanc, like their offense is just off the charts. Like their big thing is that you just got to hope that Martin Jones can shore up his game going into the playoffs. But like that roster up front, man, they are built for a long playoff run. And like the only team I'm really worried about is the Calgary Flames for the Sharks. And with the Flames, it's the same question mark: is what exactly is their goaltending going to do in the playoffs? Like you brought up the Flames, they didn't do much. They just picked up a depth defenseman in Oscar Fontenberg from the Los Angeles Kings for a conditional 4th-round pick. But yeah, I was surprised. I thought they might make some move up front. Like I think Michael Furlan not getting moved was a big one from the Carolina Hurricanes. They stood pat and kept him as a self rental. But yeah, I'll be interested to see what exactly Calgary does, because they're sort of like around like the Montreal Canadiens and the Toronto Maple Leafs, where they didn't make too many big moves. They stood pat with the team that they have.
Well, San Jose, I think, is very close to what Nashville had the last couple of seasons. Everybody talked about Nashville's big 4 defensemen. Nashville could literally play an entire game with only playing 4 defense. I think San Jose could almost do the same thing with 3 guys and have 3 guys sit on the bench the entire game and just have their defense roll for each other, because Burns, Carlson, and Vlasic never ever seem to they never appear to be tired. So it's going to be really interesting to see. There's so many great playoff matchups here that are potentially forming. Boston makes a trade because they know that they're in a position potentially to be facing the Toronto Maple Leafs again in the opening round. Why don't you fill us in on that trade?
Yeah, so they picked up Marcus Johansson from the New Jersey Devils for a 2019 second-round pick and a 2020 fourth-round pick. And, of course, earlier last week they picked up Charlie Coyle from the Minnesota Wild for Ryan Donato. So they picked up a couple of top 6 players, especially with David Pastrnak. They just announced that he'll be out for another 2 weeks with that thumb injury that he had. So Johansson, he's been in and out of the lineup a little bit with injuries, but he's been back and healthy. He's been producing really well. He's has 27 points in 48 games and will really help in that top 9, especially now that you got like Marchand, Johansson, and DeBrusk on that left-hand side, and then you look at Pastrnak, Coyle on that right-hand side. So I really like that move for Boston, and just bringing that depth, because I'm just like you got to load up for that Toronto offense and what they have. So like those moves, and well, we got a couple of Canuck trades too. One
before we touch on that, because it coincides with what I was going to bring up next, was the Pittsburgh Penguins. I understand Pat. Washington pretty much stands pat. Pittsburgh, obviously, they do a couple of moves, one involving the Canucks, to get some depth defensemen. Seeing what Columbus did, I mean, that Metropolitan Division right now is crazy. Carolina is also right there. But Pittsburgh, I think this is great because the last few years they always seem to run into injuries at the back end. So this adds some experience and a couple of right-handed defensemen.
Yeah, so they did have Brian Dumoulin and Chris Letang. They both got injured in that outdoor rink game on the weekend. So as a Canuck fan, I am very happy to announce this trade, and that is Eric Goodbranson got traded to the Pittsburgh Penguins for Tanner Pearson. Goodbranson, the worst plus-minus in the NHL, a solid minus 27, 8 points in 57 games, even though he's not known for game points. But and Pearson coming back the other way, nine goals, 15 points in 61 games between the Penguins and the Kings this year. He's had a down year this year, but the past 3 years he's averaged like sort of around like that 15 goal, 40 point mark. So I think the Canucks will be looking for him to bounce back there. He has 2 years left at $3.75 million, and Goodbranson 2 years. left on that contract of $4 million. And then the other defenseman that the Pittsburgh Penguins picked up was Chris Weidman from the Florida Panthers for Jean-Sebastien Dia, who they picked up off waivers earlier this season. But yeah, that's two right-handed defensemen, especially with the injuries that they have. Goodbranson, I'm hoping he's able to figure something out with his game. Like, I think off the ice he's actually a pretty great guy or whatever. It's just on the ice he just doesn't fully have it there. Like, I think I saw like this clip at the end of the third period against the Islanders. There, it's like 30-something seconds left, and he's behind his net and he's just holding onto the puck, and he makes this decision to do like a hard slap shot out of his zone to nobody or right to the Islanders player, because all the three forwards weren't around to get the pass instead of just skating. It's just stuff like that that's just like, oh, what are you doing, Gutty? Sort of thing. But yeah, I was just happy that the Canucks were able to unload that contract and get somebody that can hopefully help in that top six, and maybe just maybe get Bo Horvat, that left winger that he needs.
I'm not counting on it, but like all players that get traded to the Canucks throughout the season, he'll probably start on the line with Besser and Pettersson. Canucks make another move, and it has some fans scratching their heads, but what are your thoughts on the minor league trade that they made today?
Yeah, so they traded Jonathan Dahlen to the San Jose Sharks for Linus Karlsson. Karlsson was the Sharks' third-round pick in this past year's draft. The Sharks actually moved up to draft him. They traded a fourth and a fifth-round pick to draft him in that draft. But Dahlen, there have been some frustrations, I think, on the Canucks side and Dahlen's side. Apparently, he had actually asked his agent for a trade just because I think he wasn't happy that he hadn't gotten called up to the NHL and stuff like that. He has 14 goals, 29 points in 50 games. But I think this is a big frustration between the young guys playing in Utica and getting inconsistent time. But you also got to know this is his first year in North America, and you want the young guys to earn a call up when they do. Like Zach McEwen, great year down in Utica, and he finally got his call up. And as much as I'd like to see Dahlen up, you want to make sure that he earns it. But it's also a frustration from even from our fans' perspective, because we've seen so many of our young prospects this year not get any ice time, go in and out of the lineup. Like we saw Petrus Palmu, he left earlier this season. So it's a fresh start. And Linus Karlsson, he's playing in the Swedish second division, has 3 goals, 17 points in 48 games. He does have some size at like 6'1" or 6'2", and he's a centerman. I don't know a whole lot much about him other than that. Other than that it was actually Dahlen's team that relegated his team from the Swedish elite league down to the second division. So yeah, it was an interesting move. But I think I did bring up that I did see that one tweet at the end of last week that the Canucks had started to sour, and that was just a report. And then today it just sort of at the end of right before the trade deadline, and it came through.
Yeah, very interesting. Couple other minor trades. Derek Brassard being the big name that we haven't talked about yet. Why don't you fill us in on that, and then give us the 3 stars from this week?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Derek Brassard traded from the Florida Panthers to the Colorado Avalanche for a third-round pick in 2020. Brassard, he has 10 goals, 19 points in 50 games. This is his third team this season. He's had a bit of a disappointing year for his standards, but I'm hoping he can figure things out. And Colorado definitely needs some depth scoring, because outside of the big 3 there, like Carl Soderberg's had like a pretty good year, but other than that, guys have been pretty inconsistent for the rest of the team.
How bad does the Brassard for Zibanejad trade look like right now for Ottawa?
I know. And then there's a couple other trades that we didn't mention that happened actually earlier in the week. Matt Zuccarello to the Dallas Stars for a 2019 second-round pick and a 2020 third-round pick. Both of those picks can turn into first-rounders. The 2019 one, if the Stars win 2 playoff rounds and Zuccarello plays in 50% of the games, that becomes a first. And the 2020 becomes a first-rounder if he resigns with the Dallas Stars. And also the Anaheim Ducks trained Brandon Montour to the Buffalo Sabres for a first-round pick and Brendan Gould. That first-round pick, because Buffalo has 3 in this year's draft, will be the higher of the San Jose and St. Louis picks. And going to the 3 stars of the week, we have the 3rd star, Sergei Bobrovsky with the Columbus Blue Jackets, 2-1, back-to-back shutouts with a .963 save percentage. The 2nd star from the Florida Panthers, the highlight reel machine, Alexander Barkov, 3 games, he has 3 goals, 7 points. And the 1st star of the week from the Colorado Avalanche, Semyon Varlamov, 3 straight wins, .964 save percentage, and 1 shutout, as Colorado is starting to inch their way back into one of those last 2 wild card spots.
Connor McDavid suspended for 2 games for his hit to the head, I believe, on Nick Leddy of the New York Islanders. Didn't think he deserved it. Thought during his conversation that he wasn't going to get suspended with the league. Ended up getting it. I saw a replay of it, and I absolutely thought it was a headshot and exactly the kind of hit the league was trying to take out. So I thought 2 games was deserving there. I like the fact that the league is suspending him, even though he's the greatest player in the game right now. They're basically saying, we don't care if you're the best player or the worst player in the league. We're going to be consistent with it. I really like the league sending that message. Other injury updates that you have for us?
So I brought up the Pastrnak one earlier. Corey Crawford just got activated off injured reserve, dealing with that concussion. So that should help the Blackhawks, hopefully, as they look to get that final wild card spot. As well, Canuck News, Thatcher Demko got activated off IR, so he'll be backing up Markstrom tonight. Christian Dvorak with the Arizona Coyotes, he just got called up from his conditioning center. He's been out all year with a back injury, so they'll be getting him back. And then Matt Zuccarello will be out 4 weeks after blocking a shot. Broken arm, which is just terrible. The first game since getting traded from the Rangers there, he had a goal and assist, and then just one bad, just a little bit of bad luck, and he's out for just about the rest of the season. I think those were the big ones. Oh, and Braden Shen also got put on injured reserve. He got injured in that Toronto game earlier last week. And Jordan Staal back from a concussion.
And I'm assuming Braden Shen's brother Luke will make his Canuck debut now that Goodbranson was traded away. So some interesting stuff for sure. Why don't you lead us to the final word before we end today's show?
All right. So just one shout out to a former Vancouver Canuck, Roberto Luongo, tied Ed Belfour for 3rd all time in wins with his 484th career win. So the only guys staying ahead of him now are Patrick Waugh and Martin Brodeur. Congrats on that awesome mark. Tonight there are 6 games, and I will have the highlights out later tonight. You can find those on our Facebook page under B&B Hockey Talk. And you can also see some details on all the trades that were released today. I put up all the big ones on our Facebook page.
And for you fans that continue to watch all of our highlights, watch the highlight, if Matt has posted it, of the goaltender that one hand scooped up the puck. And let's find out, let's see some video footage from Matt if he's able to do that in some of his upcoming hockey games. So
I know, yeah, I actually saw that. I retweeted that, so I'll make sure to post that up.
It was quite an interesting move. I'd like to see Matt do it. I'd like to see, that takes a lot of practice, because even as a player, it's pretty tough to scoop the puck like that. So it was pretty impressive. But post that if you can, and remember to hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel, and like and share and comment and interact with us on Facebook or YouTube. And we appreciate all your guys' support. So I'm Aaron. He's Matt. We're going to be back next week with our next episode. We're off this week, but hope you enjoyed this, and hope your team got everything it needed at the NHL Christmas, as I call it, before the playoffs get started here. So we will see you guys all on our next episode of B&B Hockey Talk.